This happened about 8 months ago. I'm 27 and work as a freelance graphic designer, so I spend most of my day on my computer. I'd always been curious about the dark web, mostly from reading about it on Reddit. And one night, I finally decided to check it out for myself. I downloaded Tor and spent a while just clicking around. Most of it was boring. Dead links, abandoned forums, that kind of thing. Eventually, I found a marketplace that was actually active. I wasn't looking to buy anything, I just wanted to see what was really on there. There was a forum attached to the marketplace. People discussing different vendors, warning about scams, that sort of thing. I made the mistake of creating an account so I could read some of the locked threads. I used a throwaway email I'd made years ago for signing up for free trials. I thought that was anonymous enough. It wasn't. About 2 weeks after I made that account, I got an email to my main Gmail address. Not the throwaway. My actual personal email that I use for work, for clients, for everything. The subject line was my full name. The message said they knew I'd been browsing illegal marketplaces. They said they had logs of my activity and screenshots of the pages I'd visited. They demanded $400 in Bitcoin within 48 hours, or they would send everything to my clients, my family, and local law enforcement. I realized at that moment that the throwaway email was connected to an old username I'd used on gaming forums back in high school. This person was able to find my real email and information about me from activity from my old account. One thread of breadcrumbs leading to another. My first instinct was that this was a generic scam. Those mass emails that threatened to release webcam footage of you watching porn. I'd gotten those before and always ignored them. But this one was different. Attached to the email was a screenshot of the exact forum thread I'd been reading 2 weeks earlier. The timestamp matched. My username was visible at the top of the page where it said, "Logged in as." I felt physically sick. Someone had been monitoring that forum and tracking the people who signed up. I didn't pay. Everything I'd read said paying only leads to more demands. But I also couldn't sleep that night. I kept imagining my clients getting emails with my name attached to screenshots of drug marketplaces. Even though I'd never bought anything, how would that look? Who would believe me? The 48-hour deadline passed. Nothing happened. A week went by. I started to relax. Then I got another email. This one didn't have screenshots. It had information. My home address, which they'd clearly found through public records connected to my name. A list of my social media accounts. The names of 3 of my regular clients, pulled from my LinkedIn recommendations, and photos. At first, the photos terrified me because I thought someone had been following me. One showed my apartment building from the street. Another showed the coffee shop I worked from sometimes. A third showed my car in a parking lot. Then I looked closer and realized what they actually were. The apartment building photo was from Google Street View. You could see the Google watermark in the corner. The coffee shop was from their own Instagram page. My car photo was cropped from a picture I'd posted on Facebook 2 years ago when I first bought it. They weren't following me. They were just very good at scraping the internet for information about me and presenting it in a way that felt like surveillance. Knowing that should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because it meant anyone could do this. Anyone with enough patience and the right Google searches could assemble a file like this on anyone. The email demanded $600 this time. Same threat. I still didn't pay. I went to the police and filed a report. The officer was sympathetic but honest. He said cases like this almost never get solved. The perpetrators use cryptocurrency and route their emails through multiple countries. Without a direct physical threat, there wasn't much they could do except document it. The emails kept coming for about a month. The demands went up to $800, then $1,000. Each one included some new piece of information about me they'd found online, as if to prove they were still watching. My high school, the name of my sister, a photo from my cousin's wedding that I was tagged in. Then they just stopped. I assumed they moved on to someone else who was more likely to pay. I spent the next few months scrubbing my online presence, deleting old accounts, removing photos, untagging myself from everything I could find. I set up Google alerts for my own name so I'd know if anything surfaced. Nothing ever did. They never actually followed through on any of their threats. But here's what keeps me up at night. They built that entire file on me using nothing but publicly available information and one throwaway email address I'd used on a forum. I didn't give them anything directly. I didn't download anything malicious. I just left too many breadcrumbs over too many years, and someone patient enough was able to follow them all the way back to my real life. And if they could do it, anyone else could too. I'm 24 now. This happened when I was 20, during my sophomore year of college. I was broke, bored, and thought I was a lot smarter than I actually was. I'd been into cryptocurrency since high school. Nothing serious, just a few $100s split between Bitcoin and some smaller coins. But I spent way too much time on crypto forums reading about people who'd supposedly turned small investments into life-changing money overnight. One night, I found a thread where someone claimed to have access to a private trading group. They said it was run by insiders who knew which coins were about to pump before the news went public. Pay a membership fee, get access to the tips, make easy money. The fee was $75 in Bitcoin. I know exactly how stupid this sounds. But I was 20 and convinced I was going to be rich. The group operated on the dark web. I'd never used Tor before, but the thread had instructions. Download the browser, paste this link, create an account. Easy. When I signed up, they asked for basic information. A username, which I stupidly made similar to ones I'd used before. An email address, which I stupidly made from my real first name and birth year. And a photo of myself holding a piece of paper with my username written on it. They said the photo was to prevent bots and scammers from creating fake accounts. In hindsight, this was obviously them collecting ammunition to use against me later. But at the time, I thought it made the group seem more legitimate, more exclusive. I paid the $75 and got access to a private forum. The insider tips were worthless. Generic advice you could find anywhere. After a couple weeks, I realized I'd been scammed and stopped logging in. 6 weeks later, I got an email. The subject line was my first and last name. The message said they had my photo holding that piece of paper. They said they'd connected my username to my social media and that they knew I was a student. They named my university. They said they would edit the photo to make it look like I was holding something very different than a piece of paper, and they would send it to the university administration and post it on forums where it would be archived forever. The demand was $300 in Bitcoin. I was terrified. Not because I believed they could actually get me expelled, but because I imagined that edited photo floating around the internet with my real name attached to it. I imagined future employers finding it. I imagined explaining it to my parents. I paid. I borrowed money from my roommate under a fake excuse and sent the Bitcoin within an hour of getting the email. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. I thought it was over. Then another email arrived, same sender. This time they wanted $500. They said the first payment was just to see if I would actually pay. Now they wanted the real amount. I didn't have $500. I told them that. I begged. I explained that I was a college student with no money. The response was short. They said I had 10 days, and they included a countdown in every email after that. 9 days remaining, 8 days, 7. I couldn't eat. I failed 2 midterms because I couldn't concentrate. I spent hours researching whether edited photos like that could actually ruin someone's life. The answer seemed to be yes, at least potentially. On day 10, I just waited for the hammer to fall. It never did. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I Googled my name obsessively, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. I searched for my username on every platform I could think of. I never found anything. Either they never intended to follow through, or they just moved on to someone who was easier to squeeze. I'll never know which. What I do know is that I handed them everything they needed to terrorize me. My face, my name, proof that I was on the dark web, all in one convenient photo. I did it willingly because I wanted to believe I was about to get rich. I'm out the $75 membership fee and the $300 I paid them. And even now, 4 years later, I still occasionally Google my name late at night when I can't sleep, just to make sure that photo never surfaced. The anxiety never fully goes away. It just gets quieter. This happened about 2 years ago when I was 25. I was working at a dental office as a receptionist and living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. Nothing special about my life, just a normal routine. I'd been seeing a guy for about 2 months. I'll call him Tyler. We met on Bumble, went on a few dates, and things seemed to be going well. He was a few years older than me, worked in IT for a local company, and seemed completely normal. About 6 weeks in, we were at his apartment watching a movie when he said he wanted to show me something on his laptop. He pulled up a browser I didn't recognize and started typing in long, random-looking web addresses. He explained this was the dark web. He showed me around like he was giving a tour. This is where people buy drugs. This is where people sell stolen credit cards. This is where you can hire hackers. I asked why he was showing me this, and he shrugged and said he thought it was interesting. He said most people had no idea what was really out there. He said it with a weird kind of pride, like knowing about this stuff made him special. I felt uncomfortable but didn't say anything. I figured maybe he was just one of those tech guys who liked seeming edgy. Over the next few weeks, Tyler started saying things that made me pause. He mentioned a dentist appointment I'd had on Tuesday. I hadn't told him about it. When I asked how he knew, he said I must have mentioned it and just forgot. He asked how my lunch with my coworker Sarah went. I hadn't told him I was having lunch with Sarah. He said I'd probably mentioned it in a text. He knew I'd stopped for gas at a specific station on my way home from work. He said he must have driven by and seen my car. Every explanation sounded possible, but there were too many of them. I started paying attention to my phone. The battery was draining faster than it used to. It ran warm even when I wasn't using it. Apps I hadn't opened would be running in the background. One night at Tyler's apartment, he went to take a shower. His phone was on the coffee table, unlocked. I picked it up. There was an app on the home screen with my first name as the icon. When I opened it, I saw a map with a dot. The dot was Tyler's apartment. Below it said, current location, with a timestamp from 2 minutes earlier. I scrolled down. There was a location history. Every place I'd been for the past 6 weeks. Work, the grocery store, Sarah's apartment, the gas station, my parents' house. Everything. Time-stamped down to the minute. Below that was a section for messages. My texts were right there. Conversations with my mom, with Sarah, with my sister. Not screenshots. The actual text, like he was reading my messages in real time. I heard the shower turn off and put his phone down. I sat there for the next 20 minutes pretending everything was fine, while my heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. When I got home that night, I didn't sleep. I researched what I'd seen. It's called stalkerware. Apps that let someone monitor everything on your phone. Your location, your texts, your calls, your photos. Some of them can even turn on your microphone and camera without you knowing. They have to be installed manually, which means someone needs physical access to your unlocked phone. I remembered a night early in the relationship when I'd left my phone charging in Tyler's kitchen while we watched TV. He'd been alone with it for at least 20 minutes. The next day, I went to a phone repair shop and asked them to check for spyware. The technician found it in minutes. He said it was one of the more popular ones. He said he sees it more often than people would expect. I bought a new phone that afternoon. New number. I blocked Tyler on everything and sent him a short text saying it was over. I didn't explain why. I didn't want him to know that I knew. For the next 3 weeks, he kept showing up. At the coffee shop near my apartment, in the parking lot of my office, at the grocery store. He never approached me, never said anything. He'd just be there, watching. Then he'd leave. Sometimes I'd see him in his car. Sometimes I'd just catch a glimpse, and then he'd be gone. I filed a police report. The officer took notes and said they'd look into it, but without a direct threat or physical confrontation, there wasn't much they could do. He suggested I vary my routine and document every sighting. So that's what I did. I changed everything. Took different routes, went to different stores, changed my work hours when my manager let me. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, scanning every parking lot, checking every car. After about a month, the sightings stopped. I don't know why. Maybe he got bored. Maybe he found someone new. Maybe he just got better at hiding. I moved to a new apartment 6 months later. Different neighborhood, different side of town. I never heard from Tyler again. But that's the thing about this kind of story. There's no real ending. He's still out there. I have no reason to think he's still interested in me. But I also have no way to be sure. Someone who installs tracking software on their girlfriend's phone after a few weeks of dating doesn't just become a normal person. I check my phone constantly now. I never let it out of my sight. I don't leave it charging in other people's apartments. I use strong passwords and I check my installed apps regularly for anything I don't recognize. And I think about that night at his apartment a lot. How casually he showed me the dark web. How proud he seemed to know about all those hidden corners of the internet. He was telling me exactly who he was. I just didn't want to see it.